I feel like I've been set down in the middle of the Magic Kingdom.
It's beautiful and utterly captivating. It's like this mix between Angkor Wat and Disneyland.
This region is known for its sprawling chateaus, but none look like this.
It's not the standard version. Most of them are very, very symmetrical. This one is fun. It sits in the middle of a lake, a deliberate lake, and it makes the castle look like it's floating. It's a really clever architectural trick.
Yet this once lavish site's days of grandeur are now a distant memory.
The roof's gone, and there's vegetation crawling its way through all the windows and along all the walls.
But behind this glorious chateau is a tale of treachery and deceit.
Its owner was labelled a traitor by France's most notorious king.
But his fall from grace would be the making of this fantastical place. The Loire Valley is famed for its extravagant castles. Centuries of aristocratic wealth mean that opulence is the norm here.
We're in the heart of the French countryside, at the very tip of the Loire Valley. All the great kings of France enjoyed coming here to relax in the fresh river air.
When Roman de Lume first came here in 2017, he was instantly struck by the majestic charm of the rundown ruin.
I fell in love with the castle straight away. What with the water, the castle and nature, we're experiencing something special here. You can really sense some very strong emotions.
Chateau de la Motte Chandelier dates back to the 13th century, a time when powerful kings and queens ruled the land, long before bloody revolution would sever their heads.
Here, we're in the oldest part of the estate. You can see this big wall, which was once a moat. In fact, the main moat, which wrapped around the castle of La Motte. And in front of us, you can see the oldest section of the castle, which were the old medieval kitchens.
Over the years, the chateau has changed hands many times, and so has its appearance. And its most notorious owner was Francois de Rochechouart.
He's one of the great nobles of the 17th century in France, quite close to King Louis XIII, the father of Louis XIV, and thick as thieves with the ruling elite in France at the time.
Francois is captain of the king's bodyguards, so he's responsible for the royal family's safety and protection.
But at the start of 1643, the sudden death of the king sent shockwaves across France.
The death of Louis XIII brings about great political unrest. They're in the middle of the Franco-Spanish War, and a change in leadership at this moment is absolutely catastrophic. It turns politics into turmoil.
The new king, Louis XIV, was just 4 years old, so his mother and her advisors took control. They soon raised taxes to cover the escalating cost of the ongoing war with Spain.
This provokes an uprising in France of the leading noble families, the merchant class, and even just ordinary people in the big cities like Paris against the regime, rebelling against these tax demands.
1648 marks the start of a series of small civil wars, collectively known as the Fronde.
And during the Fronde, Rochechouart falls under suspicion of agitating against Louis XIV, and so he's imprisoned by order of the king for 2 years.
On his release, Francois, now exiled from Louis's royal court in Paris, retreats to his family's dilapidated castle, here in the Loire Valley.
Originally built as a hunting lodge, a fortress, it's been pretty much disused for 2 centuries. But he sets about transforming it into a Renaissance palace.
And to make up for his dramatic fall from grace, he creates his own court to overshadow the king's.
We're in the main courtyard of Le Motte Chandelier. You can imagine Francois de Rochechouart receiving his guests here. It was the place to be in France back then. That is, for those who were against the monarchy. It was truly the venue of choice for those coming from Paris.
Extravagance and indulgence were the order of the day.
This is pretty much the beating heart of Le Motte Chandelier. When I say beating heart, it's because Francois loved to receive guests. Picture 30 servants and up to 80 guests here. That explains why he needed such a big space to entertain all the people who chose to vacation here.
Everything here is designed for hosting. Come experience this place. Here is your room. Here's the ballroom. And join us this evening for this amazing party. It's all about building alliances through hosting and fun.
This was a very decadent period for the nobility. At the time, they'd certainly never heard of the saying, less is more.
This life of luxury had a high price, one the out-of-favor nobleman could ill afford. The remains of the Chateau de la Motte Chandelier sit floating atop an overgrown lake in France's Loire Valley. In the 17th century, its exiled owner, Francois de Rochechouart, threw everything he had into creating a palace that would rival the French court in Paris.
He completely remodeled the castle and lived a lifestyle that was actually way beyond his means. In fact, he was declared bankrupt towards the end of his life. And so, eventually, he had to abandon the castle because he couldn't afford to live there anymore.
Sadly, after its initial moment of glory, the castle moves through different sets of hands and gradually falls into disrepair.
And the chateau was left to fester for a further 140 years.
During the 19th century, 3 great families came, one after the other, to live here at Le Motte Chandelier.
Inspired by the romanticism of the most beautiful castles of the Loire, they transformed the chateau once again. In the end, a tragic event led to its ultimate destruction, from which it would never recover.
A devastating fire in 1932 broke out from a new boiler, destroying huge parts of the chateau.
Obviously, in 1932, firefighters' resources were not as developed as they are now, and sadly the castle burned down.
The next chapter of the fairy tale castle is only just beginning. When Roman first came here, the ruin was scheduled for demolition. He had 80 days to save it.
I'm the co-founder of a startup called D'Artagnan, which allows people from all over the world to collectively buy the castle of Le Motte Chandelier.
40,000 people from all over the world invested in the rescue project. Now, the chateau's doors are open once again.
Since our first season opened to tourists, we've been lucky to have more than 45,000 visitors.
You can imagine Francois would be pretty pleased to know there's that level of interest in his pet project.